The monstrous Creality K2 Plus dropped last year, and even now, 9 months later, it's still one of the most capable, affordable, and favoured 3D printers out there of those which offer a 350mm cubed build volume. Any new release has early teething problems, but now that Creality has had plenty of time to iron out any major kinks, and now that I've had plenty of hands-on time with this machine, I wanted to give you a bit of a breakdown, looking at its current strengths and weaknesses in the current market, and then deciding whether this is going to remain as one of my primary machines in my new workshop. So, let's take a look. I've had this for a few months now, but once it arrived, I quickly realised that I had no space for this absolute unit of a machine, and that kicked off me moving my entire workshop into a different room, which I've only just finished. If you'd like to see how that went, check out my previous video. Before we dive in, and in full honesty, Creality did provide this printer to me, but it came with no requirements from me, no prerequisites, and they have no control over any of the content or what I say. This is not a sponsored video, and everything that I say is my own personal experience and opinion. When it arrived, it came in an almost 60kg monolith of a crate, and the courier couldn't even lift it off of their van on their own and needed help. I wish I'd filmed the whole ordeal for you, but for reference, this is just the top of the box it came in. You're not here for the box though, you want the printer, so let's take a look. It's big, really big. 66cm tall for the printer and almost a metre including the CFS. It's built with a heavy, sturdy metal frame, and following with the modern Core XY design, it has a removable glass lid, a glass door, and a touchscreen display on the front, which we'll take a closer look at shortly. On the side is a USB port in case you wanted to run this machine completely offline, but if you did want to run this connected, which you almost certainly will, not only can you connect this to Wi-Fi, but on the back you'll find an Ethernet port. On the back we've got the cables and PTFE tubes running from the CFS to the printer. And inferred in the title of the award-winning literary work Everybody Poops, the K2 Plus is no exception, and here we have the waste chute, widely and lovingly known as the poop chute. Like most printer poop chutes, this one just ejects purged filaments straight out the back, and if you leave it unmodified, it's going to make a real mess, and probably force you to shift this beast of a printer just to clean it up. Luckily, the printing community has of course come up with some great fixes. I found this chute design which I really liked, and I'll link to this in the video description. So I printed this and designed a quick bin to pop underneath. This has worked great for me, and I haven't had any build-up of poops in the tray. Let me know in the comments what your preferred poop management method is, whether that be for the K2 Plus or another pooping printer. On the inside we've got a huge print bed giving us 350mm cubed of print volume. In addition to the bed, which can heat up to 120 degrees C, the heated chamber can also reach up to 60 degrees, making it great for more specialist materials. But as well as heating, it also cools, with two big auxiliary fans, one either side of the print bed. Fitted in the back of the chamber are two air filters intended to remove VOCs created whilst printing. However, interestingly, even though the printer has been available for 9 months now, there still doesn't appear to be a replacement filter cartridge on the Creality website. Let me know in the comments if I've missed this somewhere. It also comes fitted with two lights, one in the back right corner and one in the front left corner. This is intended to ensure that the print objects are lit from both sides for the camera and also when being viewed from the front. But both of these lights are pretty small and not that bright. Creality aren't alone here. 3D printing companies really need to start fitting decent lighting into their printers. It's really not that hard, and it's not that expensive, and it shouldn't be left down to us, the users, to fit additional lighting to these things. The K2 Plus actually comes with not one, but two AI connected cameras. There's the main one in the front right corner, which handles AI-based print failure detection, live monitoring through the app and slicer, and it also records time lapses. Then there's a second camera on the tool head, which is used for pressure advanced tuning, flow calibration, and analysing the print in real time to catch issues like under or over extrusion. Unfortunately, we don't yet have access to the camera on the tool head. That's just used internally with AI, but hopefully we will eventually get access to that for things like monitoring and time lapses. The camera in the front right isn't the highest resolution, but does seem to operate quite well compared to some competitors. We'll look at that more later on. And speaking of the toolhead, here it is fitted to a linear rail. This comes fitted as standard with hardened steel gears fit for working with harder and more specialised materials. It has a 100-watt heating element and a fast flow nozzle that claims to allow up to 40mm cubes a second with ABS, though I've not tested that yet. And then finally at the top here we have the CFS, Creality's colour filament system. This familiar design does exactly what you'd expect. It allows you to connect up to 4 spools of filament to a printer at once. One unique thing with the CFS is that on the inside of the lid there's a sprung buffer above each filament slot which helps push the spool down and prevent it from bouncing around within the CFS. This seems to be a great idea, but with the top of the rotating filament spools constantly in contact with this static surface, it's going to wear them out really quickly and need constant replacing. Already mine are showing some pretty clear wear marks. There's also a display on the front of the CFS which shows the internal temperature and humidity. I've struggled to keep the humidity down on mine, but I've not yet fitted it with additional desiccant beyond the included desiccant pouches fitted beneath the filament slots. It will also read the RFID tags of any Creality RFID compatible filaments that you insert, automatically loading the settings for the material and colour. Whilst as with similar systems you can connect up to 4 CFS to one printer allowing 16 colour prints, in my opinion it's rarely worth having more than 2 for the sake of multicolour prints, unless you're regularly doing things like HuForge pictures. This is because printing a 3D object with more than 8 colours is not only going to take an absolute age, but it's going to produce a huge amount of waste. However, there is a solid use case for maxing out your system: convenience. Having 16 colours or materials constantly connected to your printer means that you're pretty much ready to print whatever you want. So if you wanted to fire it up and start to print remotely, you don't have to worry that you don't have the colours or materials already available. It also means that you don't have to swap out spools before each print because most of your colours are already going to be connected. The other thing is overflow. If you were to double them up, let's say you had 2 of each colour in there, so you had 8 colours, 2 spools for each. If one ran out, they're just going to roll over to the next one. So you're going to have 2 kilos of filament for each of the 8 colours you had in there. Lastly on the CFS is these lid clips. It may just be me and how I use them, but I find them incredibly frustrating. They're a little awkward to use and also pretty much require 2 hands to use. Whether you're using a CFS or not, the K2 Plus has a side-mounted spool holder for external spools. Now you might have noticed when I pointed out the USB port earlier, but there's also something here. This is an RFID tag reader built into the side of the printer, meaning if you were to use a Creality RFID tag compatible spool with filament and mount it on the side, the printer is automatically going to recognise it and load the right settings for it. So these RFID tags do make things easier. Whether you're using a CFS or just the external spool of the K2 Plus, you can just pop the filament in there and then you're done. But here's the frustrating thing. These spools are not reusable, they don't come apart and you can't buy refills for them. They're single-use plastic spools that you'll just throw away. Now Creality does sell filament on cardboard recyclable spools. However, they don't come with the RFID tags, which is frustrating because they're just stickers. You can only get compatible RFID tags for these printers on these single-use spools, which cost more. Come on Creality, sort this out. When you power on a K2 Plus, if any CFS are connected, it's going to go through and check each spool of filament in turn in each of these CFS. I highly recommend you turn that feature off in settings, otherwise it's going to take an age, a noisy age. Every time you power on the machine before you can even start a print. I turned that off first thing. Well, with this powered on and now set up in my new workshop, let's get something printing. To kick things off, I wanted to start with a fairly large multicoloured print, which would be a good way of testing both purging and multiple filament changes over a long period of time. I know it's not Halloween yet, but I thought this Jack Skellington mask would be a good test of that, and I've got a friend which would absolutely love this. So I painted this up in Creality Print, and when ready to go, you can send your print directly by hitting Send Print. Now this printer can print fast. It's capable of printing up to 600 millimeters per second with an acceleration of 30,000 millimeters per second squared. Now, I'm not currently printing at quite those speeds, but I'm glad that it's not a slow printer, as even at these speeds, this is still going to take 2 days for this print. Now, the K2 Plus is advertised as being a quiet printer, quoting just 45 decibels when printing at 300 millimeters per second. 45 decibels is the volume of a library. I'm printing this mask at 300 millimeters per second right now, and this is definitely louder than any library I've ever been to. The printing process itself can be fairly quiet, at least sometimes, but the fans can be quite noisy even with the lid on and the door closed, and obviously it gets louder with the door open. But the CFS is even noisier, especially every time it rolls one of these filaments forward, it makes quite a big clunking sound, and I think that's exacerbated by the sprung buffers in the lid. But I think the real noise comes from the build plate in the form of Z-hops. Whilst printing, the K2 Plus lets out these deep, bassy thuds, which aren't just loud, but because they're so bass heavy, they permeate through the walls and floor. Initially, I thought this was caused by the acceleration and jerk settings of the printer, allowing the tool head to change direction so quickly. But the more I looked into it, the more I'm thinking it's the bed when it's doing Z-hop. To try and tackle this, I've been speaking to Through the Frame, who designed the fantastic HULA feet for 3D printers to reduce noise and vibrations, inspired by earthquake-proof building foundations. They've mocked up a version for the K2, and I'll be fitting this and testing it soon, and I'll let you know how that goes. But now let's get back to these prints. Well, at first glance, that does not appear to have gone well. It's absolutely caked in stringing and chaotic mess. But if we look a little closer, specifically if we look underneath the print bed, we will find this. This is the purge tower. So this fell off mid-print, and if we place it on the print bed, we can see that this fell off at the point that this stringing started. All of this is what should have ended up in the purge tower. So this isn't a fault of the printer or the print itself. This is just an adhesion issue, because this fell over and then it's resulted in this mess. But it also doesn't look like it's that bad. I think this is going to be fairly easy to clean up. So let's get this taken out and have a look. After all of that, that's actually come out really well. Pretty much none of that stringing was actually fused to the model, so it all just pulled straight off. And the couple of bits which were slightly fused, I just touched them with a scalpel and they pinged straight off. The only real issue with this print is actually my own fault. I was very stingy with the flushing volumes because it was a 2-day print. I didn't want to waste too much material. And as a result, you can see that the area before the black started and after the black started, the white is a different tone. Now I actually prefer, for this model, the slightly dirtier tone that's come out with the mix of the white and the black. So if I was to print this again, I would probably keep those same flushing volumes, so there is a bit of black mixed in with the white, and then print a full tower next to it, a thin tower that's entirely black, the same height as the mask, so every layer of white is mixed with a bit of black, regardless of whether there is black in that layer in the model. But either way, I think this has come out really well. Though I've not covered the K2 Plus properly until now, I did release a couple of shorts early on about something which I designed and printed with it, and that was a hard case for a MacBook Air. This gives it a little bit of protection from knocks and falls. What I was particularly impressed with it was that it was able to print the whole top or the whole bottom in one go, and that's, something larger than a laptop in a printer in one go. Whilst it wouldn't have been possible to print that MacBook case on a smaller printer, it didn't really push the limits of the build volume of the K2 Plus. Now that I've got my new workshop sorted, I wanted to design and print some customizations. One of the first things I wanted to do was make the most out of these IKEA Ekit box shelves. So I designed this, a shelf that I could slot inside there to divide it into two. And here it is. This printed in one go on the K2 Plus, and this simply slots inside there and then gives me a top shelf and a bottom shelf from front to back. But not only is the K2 Plus big enough to print a shelf that could fit into an IKEA Ekit cube, it's actually big enough to print an insert that would fill the entire void inside these cubes, turning them into a mesh of shelves. I've actually designed one of these, but haven't yet had time to print it. But actually, forget inserts. The K2 Plus is big enough to print an entire one of these cubes itself. Time for one final test print today. We've already gone big and we've already gone multicolored. Now it's time to test for detail and functionality. So I'm going to be printing the popular Dummy 13 model at 150% scale. I printed it using 0.08mm layer height to really push to the level of detail and precision, and I printed it using print by object, allowing us to have this whole plate with 2 colours come out in just over 2 hours. Looking at the individual parts, they seem to have come out really nicely, with smooth curves, consistency in the straights, and not very visible layer lines, which you'd expect from this layer height. So let's get this fitted together and see how these parts work together. This is actually the first time I've printed out a Dummy 13, but I am super impressed how well this came out. And I know that I'm here to talk about the printer and the print quality, but credit where credit's due, this is really well designed and thought out. Now, in terms of print quality, the level of detail on this is superb. Super smooth curves, very little sign of any layer lines. There doesn't seem to be any deformation or any issues that occurred, with one exception. On the right sleeve here, the top maybe 3 layers didn't print, and I have a feeling that because it didn't affect the other one, which would have been printing at the same layer height, that this might have been an adhesion issue and it just slid a couple of centimeters or a couple of millimeters on the print bed and it just didn't finish that top layer, but the rest of it is perfect. In terms of functionality, and which is why I chose this model, it all clipped together great. If you were putting force to push 2 pieces together to clip together and it wasn't printed well, you'd be worried about it snapping or delaminating. I had none of that concern here. This pushed together really nicely, and as you can see, it holds its position really well. It's not falling down, but equally it doesn't require a huge amount of force to move it. It's not over extruded or made anything too big or too small. This has gone really well. So I would say, with the exception of that sleeve, the K2 Plus has scored 10 out of 10 printing this. I'm really impressed. So that's a general overview of the printer, but these days the machine is just part of a bigger picture. Let's take a quick look at the software and general ecosystem that the K2 Plus lives in, starting obviously with the slicer, Creality Print. Whilst it does come down to popular preference to an extent, I personally don't find Creality Print as user-friendly as some other popular slicers, and I am surprised to find that even on my pretty powerful computers, it can occasionally freeze or even hang, even before I've imported a model. So with a hopeful future for it at least, I'll definitely be releasing some Creality Print tutorial videos, taking you through the basics, some of the more advanced features, and also looking at some of the pretty cool functionality in here, such as hollowing and drilling, so keep an eye out for them. Whilst the software, including the app, can feel a bit clunky and less refined, I have found that the live camera feed, albeit at lower resolution, seems to be more responsive and streams at a higher frame rate than many other printers. The other side of the ecosystem is where you get your models from, presuming you're not designing them yourself. Now, of course, it doesn't matter what brand printer you've got. Any brand printer, you can download and print models from Thingiverse, from MakerWorld, from Printables, you name it. But downloading from the website run by your printer manufacturer can make things easier, with pre-rigged project files, pre-painted models, and with some services allowing you to print directly from the website or from the app, all without even touching a slicer. Though even when using the Creality app and searching Creality Cloud, many of the models on there don't support printing direct from the app, and even when they do, when you select it, it gets added to a waiting list to be sliced on the server. And then even when you get to the front of this list, it can still take 5 to 10 minutes to be sliced before you can start printing. This is if you're a free user. I believe you get slicing priority as a subscribed user. On Creality Cloud, their online platform, it seems to heavily push premium 3D models, which are only available to paying subscribers or for a one-off fee, over ones that are available to download for free. The Creality Cloud ecosystem is very much set up for the paying customer rather than the free visitor. Even downloading free models will take a lot longer with a free account, and I could download a 2 GB mini game from Steam in the time it took me to download a 40 MB STL on Creality Cloud. But at the end of the day, downloading your models from Creality Cloud, regardless of what printer you've got, is optional, and you can always just download them from a different website and slice them yourself. Whilst the thudding isn't great, the K2 Plus does actually make a sound which I particularly enjoy every time I hear it. If you power it down with the bed already raised, gravity then takes over and lowers the bed, and in doing so it makes a sound that I find distinctly reminiscent of PacMan. So, it may be a bit noisy, the software might be slightly temperamental and slow, and it might feel more like a diesel workhorse than a refined technological device. But there's something about this machine. Every time I open the door and look inside, it inspires me. It excites me about what the next big thing is I'm going to print. Whilst it might be rough around the edges, this thing has a huge build volume. It has a solid metal Core XY frame. It has some great and genuinely useful features, and it has a really big support network behind it. Even with my growing range of 3D printers with different sizes and functions, I can confidently say that this is definitely going to remain a core part of my 3D printing lineup for years to come. I think if you are looking for a particularly large printer, this is definitely one worth considering. So what do I want to see improved or added to here? There's obviously some functionality which I would love to see, but that's going to involve a whole new machine, though Creality may have teased at that fairly recently, so we'll see what comes out soon. But to refine it down to see what can be done to make the K2 Plus an even better printer, I've narrowed it down to 3 categories. First of all, the software and ecosystem. Creality, I can see that you're already working on this, so hopefully it's going to get better. The slicer has some great features, it just needs to be a bit more stable. The printer's firmware could also run a bit tighter. And I would like to see a more user-friendly experience on Creality Cloud, especially for the folks who aren't looking to pay for a premium experience but still want to buy your printers. Secondly, the sound. There surely must be something that can be done with the firmware or with the slicer to reduce those heavy, thudding Z-hops without reducing print quality. Lastly, the CFS. I would love to see the release of a CFS 2 with a better hinge lid, better design for the locking clips which can be easily used one-handed, a new design for the sprung buffer at the top that uses a roller to significantly reduce how quickly they wear down, and finally, just to be quieter. With or without those changes, I do really enjoy using this machine, and whilst today was just a general overview of my opinion of this machine, I look forward to bringing you tutorials, makes and deep dives on it in future videos, along with my videos on other printers and maker tech. I'll pop a link in the description below to any of the models that I've talked about in today's video, such as the Jack Skellington mask and the poop chute. If you liked today's video, please do hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. Thanks very much everyone, and until next time, happy printing. A huge thank you to my channel members. You guys are fantastic and your support means so much, so thank you. If anyone would like to join them, both supporting me and getting yourself some bonus goodies, hit the join button below any of my videos. For now, why not pop on one of my other videos to learn something new or have some fun. Thanks very much everyone, and until next time, happy printing.